you can see, but apologies for that. So I was saying, I think then you didn't see when this part where I was talking about the functions we need to learn. So I was saying these are the functions we need to learn. SUMIFs, AVERAGEIFs, and COUNTIFs. This is what I will spend more time talking about today. And we'll also need to learn index and match, VLOOKUP, which we looked at the other day. If we have looked at briefly in the past. Choose is what I was trying to illustrate, which obviously you missed, but I'll go through it again. Then we'll do these ones. All right. So let me display this again. So I was saying, you missed this altogether. So this is an assignment I've given before. Yeah. You see my screen now?
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
The screen is not yet up.
Oh my, I'm not sure what is going on. Let me try that again. Is it visible now?
Yeah, it is.
Now it's visible. Okay, apologies for that. All right, allow me to go off video for this one. So I'll get back to that. You still can see the screen now. So I was saying, the choose function is what I was starting with. And we say what I did is initially we didn't have that column. This column was not there in the data that I shared with you before. I'll get rid of this. So what we are trying to do is to start with the choose function, and what I did here is I added a status code column called status code. This status code will help us answer this question. So here we had been told to create a lookup. So in that case, you used the data validation option. So you did this. If you did this exercise, it was what you did was using this data validation list. Then you listed whether somebody was married. It gave us a list of options. So that's one way to do it. What I'm asking us to do now is to use a choose function. So we will type the function like that. Then this is a cell we are choosing. And then we're listing the options like this. So this is taken as code 1. And this will be taken as 2. So in other words, if I wrote a 1, it gives me the first option for formula. So this one has, sorry, let me remove the validation group here. So if I enter some 2, it gives me single. If I enter 1, it will give me married. But I need to copy this formula down. Okay. Enter 2, it will be single. So that's an example of the use of the choose function. Excuse me a minute. All right, back to it. I was saying now this value here, We don't want to see this error message. If you remember from last lesson, we were using an if function to hide the error. Can you remember how we were doing that? I think part of what I've done at the BC is I used something like this. So we said if this cell contains nothing, then display nothing. Otherwise, you do that formula. Okay, so you have to enter now. Where there is nothing entered of this cell, it should not show me anything. So just to check, to display that again, what I'm saying is the formula is an if function. Maximize this and display from here. If E3 has nothing, then display nothing. That's what that part means. Otherwise, check what is in E3. If it is a 1, like this is, if we had another case here, let's say, for example, had 3 has divorced or something, separated or whatever status you might put. It means now there will be a third option. If I type a 3, it should give me the third option because I need to copy this from. So it speaks, these things are indexed. So this is index 1, index 2, index 3, and so forth. I can add a 4th one and so forth. I hope it kind of makes sense, the logic of it. Okay, so I can also, just another simple illustration of it. Suppose I add some grades. So we want to say something like this. Somebody is either, it's either a merit, pass, or a distinction. Okay, if you recall, we were using VLOOKUP for this. So if we had some marks, let's say these are names of students, then let's say category. This is whether we'll put, let's make it a code, then we say grade. Then we have some random students here. Then we have different codes. So this represents whether it's a merit or a pass or a fail. Let's even a fail. Okay, the way I can choose function is I will do the same thing, same structure, choose. So you're categorizing this using a code. So choose this, then I will enter the options like this. You can have pass, one represents a pass. Or rather, let's start from the top, distinction. So it's kind of logical. Distinction, then we have merit, then we have pass. Notice I'm using speech marks. Then we can have the last one as fail. Have something sort. So that's some kind of also a logical application of the choose function. It's an alternative to using a VLOOKUP or using a very long if function. Okay, so we will do some more exercises on this, but for now I want to move on to this first category, SUMIFs, AVERAGEIFs, and COUNTIFs. The only difference between these and the other ones, is you will notice these ones have an S at the end, and they allow you to include multiple criteria. Okay, so if I can demonstrate a bit using this one, this same worksheet. Let me complete, fill some data here. Say this will be 2. So this is a choose function doing the work. So I don't have to enter some very long data. Then department, let's suppose there is IT department, sales. I can actually use the data validation for that. So I don't have to type so many departments. Let's say sales, admin, HR, IT. Let's have those cells to start with. If I do that, then I'm able to pick them from a list. We have done this in some previous lesson. Sales, I've entered a few, I can just type the first letter and they pop up. T, sales people, in, sales. So suppose we want to do some kind of analysis of this data. We could also include some data on basic pay so that we can do some more realistic analysis. Forgive me today, my voice is really, so I'm trying to keep it very low. So this. Some random numbers which we'll use to illustrate each of those count ifs, sum ifs, and average ifs. Then we will have achieved one of the major objectives for today's lesson. Some data there. So suppose we wanted to use multiple criteria. So we want, for example, to do our analysis here. A bit of some analysis. So we want to show, let's say, for example, people in admin who are earning above, let's say, 55,000. So there are two criteria there. So in admin, plus greater than 55,000 or greater than 50,000, a basic pay. That's our criteria. If we wanted to, like, it's a number of people we want. So admin and greater than 50K by, let's say, by department. So we can copy this down. We just want all people, including the department that are earning more than 50,000. So let's say this is HR. Then we turn this into sales. Right. We are counting the number of people. So if we use the normal count if, this count if can help us count the department. Let's say for the first criteria, we'll have, let's say, the department in this criteria is admin. Close that bracket to just give us admin. If you look at it, there is no way of adding a second criteria, which is where count ifs comes. If I add an S there, then you notice this changes. It gives you an opportunity to add more criteria and rather more ranges and more criteria. Just notice if I remove the S, I only have range and one criteria. If I add the S, then I get multiple ranges and multiple criteria. So count ifs allows you to have multiple criteria for retrieving data. So I can now add this. I say in this range, in the same formula, in that range, my criteria is an amount, all amounts greater than 50,000 shillings. So I'll do greater than, I can use greater than or equal to 50,000. Okay. So it will tell me there are 2 people who meet that criteria. Let me just display that again. So I'm using COUNTIFs, and I want to show people in admin who are earning a salary greater than 50K. Okay, so I have included 2 sets of criteria and a range. So I have a range. In this range, I'm looking for the department admin, and in this range, I'm looking for the amount. And notice the way I have put this amount. I've also enclosed it in speech marks, right? So we have another simple illustration. Suppose we want to say married people, for example, who are, we want to use some different criteria. Married people who are earning less than, let's make it less than 30,000. Okay, married people earning less than 30,000. Let's see if there's any people like that. So we can do married less than 30,000. Okay, so we can, if we want to use COUNTIFs, then we just, or rather COUNTIFs is the only way to do this. COUNTIFs, the first criteria from this section will be married. Then using the second criteria is from this section, that range. Then this time around we're saying less than 30,000. Let's see if there is such people. County center, and it will tell us there are 2 people in that category. Okay, so if you check through the data, you will be able to see who they are. Is that one? But think of this as a way of looking through thousands of records. Under normal circumstances, there will be organizations, say the government or other big organizations, which will have hundreds of employees. So this will help you retrieve some data very quickly. So that's count ifs. Let's try. So that was a demonstration of count ifs. Using this same data, let's try some ifs. So this is count if. Let's try some if using this same data. We want to get the total amount of money. Some ifs, I should add an S there. Amount of money paid to, let's say, single people in the sales department or something like that. Single people in the sales department. So we want this single plus sales. We want to see how much are the single people paid in the sales department. In total, the sum of the amount they are paid. So we'll have something like this. Sum ifs. Then for the first one, the single bit, I will get my criteria from here. So this is single. Then comma. The second criteria I'm using is they should be the sales department. So I get from here, comma, criteria is sales. See, now I'm doing something amiss here. I need to have a third one where I have the sum range. sum range. So the sum range should be here. I'm summing the A. So I have the sum range, criteria range 1, criteria range 2, and criteria 2. Okay, great. So sometimes this formula, this wizard here will guide you on what you need to do. So the sum range refers to, remember here the point was I was trying to get how much in total people who are single and in the sales department. The idea with SUMIF is you can use two criteria. This is what I'm saying. There's this first criteria for the status, and there is a second criteria for the department they're in. Okay, then the sum range. Sum range is where the value, the figures that will be added will come from. Right? I hope that makes sense. Or we can have something like the average, although that is average if average age of single people earning, let's say, above 50,000. You can all sorts of analysis you can do. So now I'm already talking about average ifs. So let's try average ifs, and let's use that criteria. Suppose we have said average. If we just were using the normal if, suppose we just wanted to get the average pay for a married person in this organization, and just say equals average if, then we would do range is, this is where we are getting the married part, and the criteria would be married, because we want the average pay. We get, this is the average range. That will give us the average pay of a married person in this organization. But suppose we wanted the average pay for a married person in the sales department. So there is a second criteria. This married person is in the sales department. So we can do, we now need to use the average if function. So we say something like this. Average ifs. Then remember, in this case, we start with the average range. This is what we'll be averaging. Or it could be any quantitative value. It could also be this age. Suppose you want the average age instead. Use as that as well, but let's use the average pay. So the first criteria is this. So we want to check in this section people who are married. And we have also said they should be in the sales department. So the sales department will come here, select our second range, then comma, and 6. Then we close our bracket. Let's see what I'm doing wrong here. I've added an extra comma here, so and I get the average age of a married person at the sales department is 60,000. And it's that because I can see, I think there is only one person who fits that criteria. I can always change one piece. Suppose I made this, then it will give me a number. It will take the average of that 60 and that 28. That is where it's got that number from. Okay. So that's just an introduction to SUMIFs, AVERAGEIF, and COUNTIF. But I want to use another worksheet illustrate the same thing. So if I have some data here, just a bit more on the same thing, and this one I will also send you to try. So there's lots of data on this worksheet. Let me just do a bit of formatting. I hope I'm still visible. The screen is still visible. So we have some data here. This is some kind of college that does test preparation. Okay, it could be any of those standard tests, GRE, SAT, and so forth. Okay. So there's some data about some students. This is the gender, the ethnicity. So typically, some of these standardized tests, they take all sorts of different data about you. If you're doing GRE, for example, they want to know your ethnicity, lots of background information for some statistical studies they do. So we want to do a bit of a summary of this data. Is parental level of education, there is let's say lunch. Some people do free or reduced standard. Just to do a bit of examining the data so that we make sense of it. These are their scores for the different sections of the test. So this looks like it was one of those, most likely one of those standard test GREs, one that looks like this. Right? So moving here, let's look at what we are supposed to do. Using COUNTIFs, we are supposed to count the number of students. Okay, so this one can even be done with count without using COUNTIFs. I'll do some of them, then I will ask you to do the others. So let's see, COUNTIF. Then I will go to the range. To highlight the whole thing, I've held Control and Shift, then pressed the down arrow. The comma and my criteria is give me the number of female students. The question is, will COUNTIFs do the same thing? So I can use COUNTIFs and I get the same result. It's only that COUNTIFs would give me a chance to put some more criteria. So let's try this second one. Females who completed a test prep. So if we look at our data, we want to pick this and test prep. The test prep should be completed. This section should read completed. So I'll go here and go there. That is equal to COUNTIFs. If I try using this without the S, it will not work. It will only allow me to put one range and one criteria. I use this. First range is female, so I will do this and select that section and put my criteria. This is an interesting one. Sometimes when you read the question, it can be a bit misleading. You see, when they say female who completed a test prep, there will be those students who will write this word, what they're reading. It's an easy mistake to make. To read females here, you write it this way, but it won't see anything because it will be trying to look for that word females with a capital F and an S at the end. Then you will be wondering why you're getting a 0. It's an easy enough error to make. So I'll remove that in a bit. Completed a test prep. So I'll go here, and for the test prep, we'll get this back to the top. I want this section and comma. I get a 0 because one of my criteria is wrong. So finds what is on the data. It will look at what is on the data. This is spelled with a small f. It is case sensitive. All right, let's try one more on the other, on the sum ifs. Then I will leave some of this. I'll be sending you this shortly. So you try it. Let's try total reading points scored by students who received standard lunch. Total reading points. So it is summing the reading points of students who received standard lunch. Let's see what that means. So of course we use sum ifs. Then we go to reading points. For students who received, let's see, what was that again about the lunch, standard lunch. So, comma, select that, and the criteria is standard. Again, type it as it is on the worksheet. Missing here. Sum ifs. This is a sum range. Criteria range 1. This here. Yeah, I should show you the correction. So total reading points. So in other words, it has gone to this range and looked at. Remember, these are very many records. We go up to 1,000 records. So it is adding up the reading scores of people who are on standard lunch. So those are quite so many scores. Or we could do some other analysis, some more meaningful analysis. We could try something like the math scores of female students, for example. Let's try that. Math score for female students. And then we compare it with the math score for male students to see whether it makes sense. So we go here. Let's put it math score. Let's do our own analysis. Actually, that would make more sense if we did an average. So let's see, math score by gender. So we'll say male, female. So we do equals average. Then here I select the math score. This is our average range, and we want this second criteria to be the gender. Start here backwards. This first one. So the average score, math score for males is that. And I can use the same data because these ranges are the same. Let me just use F4. Remember F4 from last time. So an absolute reference, because I just want to type the whole thing again. So absolute reference locks that range. So I can now just change this to female, and I get the average math score for female students is 63. So I can use that data to make some conclusions. Okay, so that's average ifs, and I can add other criteria. Let's see which other criteria we can add. Let's say average math score for male students who have whose parents have some college education. Okay, let's add some college for this and see whether it has some meaning on our data. So I'll come here and add another criteria. So I'll sit here, look at this. Then we want to see if males whose parents have some college education have higher scores than the ones whose parents don't have some college education. So this is parents college. Let's say parents say no college. So we are digging deep into the data and trying to make sense of or extract some useful information from it. So I'll do the same thing. I'll avoid retyping this. I hope this is making sense. I'm just doing this locking that range to avoid typing the whole thing. So I'll just copy this downwards. So it retains all the ranges. So it should give me the exact same number. What I want to change this is this part where it says some college. I need to look here and see compare those ones with the ones with, let's say, high school. Parents whose highest level of education is high school. So I'll come here back to my formula and change this to high school. See, there is a significance of education by 0. Yeah, that's interesting. So this is high school. This is parents who have gone to college, parents who have gone to. So that's interesting. You would think probably the parental level of education might have an impact on the performance of the children on maths or some other subject. But this data seems to say otherwise. The ones whose parental level is high school seem to have higher scores than the ones whose parents have gone to college, which is a bit odd. So what I want us to do, I want to send you this worksheet, the one that I'm working on now. Your job will be to fill this part, complete this section using AVERAGEIFs, SUMIFs, and COUNTIFs, right? So let me share it with you right away. And apologies for my voice again. I'm straining through this. So I will stop sharing and email you, or rather send you this on WhatsApp. I will remain online as you try to use COUNTIFs to fill in this section. I will look for an appropriate exercise for a choose function. Then in another sitting, we will go through these other functions.